Okay, so howdy doody, everybody. Today I want to talk about this book, Opening the Dragon Gate, The Making of a Modern Taoist Wizard. Yeah, so I don't know if anyone's heard of this book. It's obviously made its rounds in the Qigong world, or the Taoist. I don't know if the Taoist world per se, but people who are into spiritual cultivation, internal alchemy, they should have known about this book. And it's one of those books, Opening the Dragon Gate, has a fun title. I don't think they ever actually talk about how to open it. It's more of a biography. So just clearing that up right now. So this book, once again, it's a biography. It's about a guy called Wang Liping, written by his two students. I'm going to butcher their names: Chen Kaigo and Zheng Sunchao. Yeah, okay, whatever. It's translated by Thomas Cleary. If you don't know who that is, he's a fantastic scholar of Eastern literature. But anyway, Enter the Dragon Gate. So I don't know. This is going to be a review or something, but basically it starts off in the early chapters as this Wang Liping is some normal 15-year-old kid, and he's one of those. It's one of those kind of like Carlos Castaneda, how he just randomly meets basically a South American wizard. This is like times three. He's this random Chinese kid, and he literally meets three crazy Taoist wizards. Just well, I mean, by the codes of fate. Nothing's by chance per se. But anyway, he meets them, and they just start teaching him. And once again, they start talking about things and they skip over things and they allude to things. So the teachings that he's given, or the techniques that are explicit in the book, are basically mental silence techniques. The whole thing is mental, doing, sitting down for 3 hours a day without any thoughts in your head, that kind of thing. So I don't know. Then it's just like that again, but in different situations, like in a pit filled with incense smoke. So he coughs and he's not allowed to move, and or like, what was one that was like over a pit of filth, so it was really smelly, like a bad smell. It was weird. It was weird, man. But he basically completely masters his mind in the first kind of chapters, and then there's this one bit where it's one of those things. Like that was one thing I was disappointed with. It's like I like reading occult biographies, especially because you can kind of, I don't know, get a gist for the techniques and feel like you're working with the practitioner as they're going through it. But there's one bit where he's going on to another phase of the work, and I think the wizards give him this pill that they made mysteriously, and he goes through this death process where it's like a mystical experience, and he perceives the originator of his lineage, the Longman lineage, and it's kind of like, yeah, that's great, but no one else can do that, bro. No one. What you? Once again, what used to it is it's a biography though. It's a biography though, so it's in there. But basically, this path that he's done, is unique. No one else can do this path, or unless you're very lucky and three Taoist wizards knock up on your doorstep. But hey, what are the chances of that happening? So he kind of goes through this death state, and then he travels with the wizards, and they kind of go all over China, kind of trolling some people, sometimes being invisible, and sometimes using medicine. And some of those chapters are very interesting. But the book itself is good. It's a good read. I enjoyed it. It became a bit of a trudge towards the end because I do like Taoism. I have an affinity for it, but I'm mainly a Western esoteric kind of guy. So, I know, for recommendations, if you're wanting to get into Taoism, like if you're already into Taoism, there's probably nothing new you'd learn from this book. But I mean, it would definitely be, something to read for a complete education, if you're into that. But if you're wanting to get into Taoism, or if you're wanting to perhaps even get into the internal arts, even though the book isn't a manual per se, the book is laden with references, because that's like, the masters will talk about, oh, and this book, or in this treatise, and they're all things that are famous in the, I guess, the Chinese Taoist canon. So you can go and find those other books if you're really interested. Although the one thing that's interesting about this is, all through this book, there's this thing on discipline, this thing on hard work and silencing the mind. Lots of very cerebral mental things and allusions to energetic workings that are then never explicitly stated. But the ironic thing is right at the very end of the book. Spoiler alert. His students are asking him questions about what's the real key for the Taoist path, and he basically, Wang Liping, this is speaking, basically just says, the key for the work, really, if you want to go far on the Taoist path, what you need to cultivate is intuition, because intuition will be your real master, which will guide you. And I was like, that's very funny, because the Rosicrucian, Rosicrucians, Western Hermeticism, there's this whole kind of thing, if you're into that, uh, where the Rosicrucians will teach something, but they'll give it to a student in a cipher, or in alchemical teachings they'll give something like a contradiction, or they'll give a half teaching or a half ritual which you have to complete with your intuition. Because the whole idea is if you're given the knowledge, you get it, but you get it just intellectually, and that's just it. You don't really develop. And so the gaining of the knowledge itself is a part of the development. That's why they kind of give half knowledge, or knowledge in a contradiction or in a cipher. And so you're supposed to work it out via your intuition, because your intuition fundamentally is, you could say, the inner masters talking to you, or the higher part, your higher self whispering in your ear, that kind of romantic stuff. But in the end, your intuition is something, I guess you could say, it's on the other side, and it's working inwards, and then you are on the physical world and you're working towards that threshold. And so in essence, when you work with intuition, it's a two-pronged attack to do the work. Whereas if you just went intellectually, you'd gain the intellect, but you'd get to a point where there's a cutoff and you're limited and you can't actually go beyond that point. So it was very interesting that in a completely different system, this Taoist system, which are great mental feats and energetic mastery, and then right at the end they're like, what's the key to Taoism? Oh, it's intuition. Ha 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 ha. Very funny. I found that funny. It was kind of ironic. Anyway, it's a good book. I enjoyed it. I hope that helps anyone out who was thinking about buying it.